Great. So, welcome to the peer-to-peer fundraising session. So why did you choose to be here? What was the intrigue about the peer-to-peer fundraising? Anybody?
Go ahead. Well, it's my first day today,
okay.
And I deal with communicating with people a lot outside of the company, so just knowing how to talk to them and understanding the best tactics for that.
Yeah, different way of reaching out. Stephen?
For me, just working with a nonprofit and being fairly new to Drupal, the session seemed pretty relevant, so I wanted to learn as much as I can.
Okay. Gregory, Kevin, any?
We're starting to get into peer-to-peer fundraising.
Okay, so you're already starting on that path. Great.
I would like to set up my business someday.
Okay.
With less money.
All right, so you're looking for some kind of a crowdfunding Kickstarter campaign that could help you launch your own business.
I can steal some of your ideas, I guess. Yeah.
There's no stealing. When I'm sharing, it's not stealing.
We are developers, we are good with stealing.
That's true. So, the example we're going to be using today, we've implemented this particular system on a number of occasions for a number of organizations, but the particular case study we're going to look at is the University of Minnesota, and specifically the University of Minnesota. They have a foundation, donor management center, where they coordinate all of their incoming gifts. And so they approached us, and the idea was very relevant and very similar to what you have commented on, which is they realized that the University of Minnesota Foundation, they realized that as they're going through, they've got tens of thousands of alumni out there, and it's been very much a one-way conversation. The university going out to them saying, hey, alumni, give us money, right? And so they had annual drives and everything. It was fairly successful, but it was still very much a one-way conversation. And they said, well, what would it take, and what would be the reaction if we engaged in a different type of conversation? And instead of us reaching to the first level of people, our alumni, we gave the alumni tools. The alumni are already the biggest advocates that the university has, right? And I'm sure in your organizations, you have kind of that very first circle of advocates, people that are passionate about who your organization is and who want to help you and serve you, but their ability to give back, whether it's in time or money, donations, etc., there's only so much they can do. Well, what if they had the tools to go out and reach out to their circle of friends? And so the university approached us and said, we'd really like to reach out, reach more people and kind of go to that second and third level, right? 6 degrees of separation. So they said, we're aware of the fact that this is very much the first circle, the alumni that we're reaching out to. What would happen if we gave the alumni tools to reach out on our behalf to the people that they know that might have not even been to the University of Minnesota but are passionate about giving back? So we went out and developed a website for them, specifically for the crowdfunding. So there was the URL on the previous slide, the crowdfund.umn.edu, which is the entire system that we're going to be showing you here today and discussing. And the goals may seem pretty straightforward or simple, but as you know, with technology and everything else, it's not always necessarily that way. So the idea was to have a good user experience by providing campaigns. So think of this system, it's not just a peer-to-peer crowdfunding, it's more like a Kickstarter overlaid with team and training, right? You're going out, you're creating teams, and you're getting people engaged around a particular cause, around a particular campaign. So they wanted a system where people could come in and set up their own causes and campaigns, where it would make it easy to donate, and then maybe somebody would donate as an individual and participate on the team, and the next time they would come back and say, oh, I want to set up my own campaign. And they wanted it easy to create crowdfunding pages that were fairly consistent in look and feel, but still give people some flexibility in putting together some of their own personal touches. enhance the content functionality with, again, we didn't want just, give us one picture and a bunch of text and a donate button. So we'll get to it, some of the things we've done that. And then, of course, for the back end, they wanted something that was easy to administer and add new content and different content on the pages. Right, so that was kind of the goal. And the way we approached it is, and I should probably talk a little bit more about what we do at Square, but our expertise is with Drupal and CiviCRM. And if you haven't heard of CiviCRM before, there was a logo up on the first slide. CiviCRM is a CRM system that's specific to nonprofits, educational institutions, trade organizations, professional associations, nonprofits. And the big difference about that particular CRM system compared to many other ones that are out there, most other systems out there, when you look at it from an architectural standpoint, they're very linear. And what I mean by that is they're targeted towards either sales or fundraising specifically, which means you have a suspect and a prospect and a lead, and then they become a donor, right? So it's a very linear system. One goes to the other. CiviCRM was designed about 12 years ago, and it's an open source project that plugs into Drupal. The big difference with CiviCRM is that it's designed in what I call the hub and spoke model. You have a contact in the middle, and that contact could be a donor, that contact could be a forum participant, a mailing list subscriber, a event registrant, donor, whatever it is, right? Member, if you're a membership-driven organization. So it doesn't dictate in which order does that contact interact with the organization. And so as part of CiviCRM functionality that's built in, they call it personal campaign pages, which is really the crowdfunding or peer-to-peer fundraising. We utilized some of that functionality and then enhanced it with the context of Drupal. So we took the contribution pages and organized them kind of in a larger level, which we called campaigns. We allowed for the users to create and edit pages. I mean, that's already there to create the pages, put in an image, put in a goal amount, put a page listing approval for the administrator. So you don't want just people going off and creating a bunch of pages and not having control. So there's already a mechanism in there. There is already some social sharing to tell a friend. They have what they call an honor roll, so kind of the scrolling little list of people that have donated and the amounts and the progress towards a goal with a little thermometer that is so popular, and then email notifications. So if you were to go in today, take Drupal, put in CiviCRM and enable these personal campaign pages, you would get that functionality straight out of the box, which is a very powerful functionality as it is. So what we did is we developed something, and this is a visual of an actual page from there, that obviously has got the page, the title, the image, the text around it. You can see the little thermometer with the goal, and then the donor list on the right side, and of course a call to action to give, right? So you've got a very solid page with some ability to do that. And what we did is we took the out-of-the-box CiviCRM personal campaign pages and built on top of it. And these are some of the Drupal modules and sandbox modules. CiviCRM Entity is something that takes CiviCRM and Drupal and integrates it even tighter. So there is a lot of flow, because when you install CiviCRM as part of the Drupal installation, you get a lot of functionality, but the CRM system has so much more to it. We're actually the maintainers of CiviCRM Entity at Square, and we keep developing it and providing more integration between the Drupal side and the CiviCRM side, because there's just so much information that can go back and forth. So whether it's on event management and registration, personal campaign pages, donor management, etc. Then we've also developed a module, excuse me, that's CiviCRM exposed tables. So this is think of views. Have you ever had a table in Drupal where maybe you're importing data or you're storing some external data in the same Drupal database, and you want to access it from your views for reporting functionality, right? When you have an external table that's not a field, that is not a piece of content that Drupal knows about, how do you get to it? Well, you could write your own queries, right? But unless you're trying to get into the code, unless you're trying to be very specific about what you want, this module allows you to access any data in any table within the database. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even have to be the same database as Drupal, so you could keep two separate databases for two different data sets, Drupal and something else. You install this module and you can access the tables and the data from within it and then report back in the views. So if you have used views for reporting functionality, you know the power that's in it. And then probably everybody here is familiar with WebForm. And there is a module that's called WebForm City CRM, which builds on top of WebForm and allows the usual WebForm interface, formatting, and all the different functionalities to interact with City CRM. So again, whether you're processing a donation or an event registration or just creating new contact and things like that, you can use the WebForm functionality and interact directly with the CRM database. All right? So what did the client, the University of Minnesota Foundation, they said, oh, well, we'd like some additional features here. So we want a more robust search capability. They wanted people to not just be able to create these personal campaign pages and donate. They wanted kind of a team or a grouping of people to join, officially kind of declare, I'm joining this particular group. They also wanted the public search within all the different texts, not just through the individual campaign pages. They wanted a user dashboard so that they could see who's been in their page, who's donated, who has joined the campaign. And they, again, wanted more of a team approach because the stock functionality only allows for the individual personal campaign and not other people's to join. So they kind of wanted to create the team around it. They also wanted to add offline contributions to totals. So there was additional functionality. So when people would mail in a check or somehow contribute not online, they still wanted to have that recorded and captured in the system. They wanted to have a fund organization, which is more of an accounting feature. And they wanted to anonymize some of the donations. So sometimes people want to give back, but they don't necessarily want to be publicly recognized for that. So how do we handle that? Including when somebody donates on a campaign that somebody else has set up, we've got a whole functionality where there's email notifications that go into it. Well, then the question becomes, how do you notify somebody that they got a donation, or by default, because it puts it, hey, you know, Peter went on your page and donated $100. How do you handle that when that person says, I don't want to be publicly recognized? All right, so we had to integrate that as well. And then we've developed a contribution feed, so an XML file that's fed to their accounting system. So they have one large donor database that all the different parts of the university are feeding into. So part of the system, part of the requirements for the system was to develop an accounting system feed so that they could capture all of that information. And then last but not least, in the additional feature set, they wanted to have the ability to set start and end dates so that when people would set up these campaigns, some of those would sunset automatically depending on when that particular event or that cause was wrapped up. So some of the functionality and screenshots here of, again, WebForm City CRM. So this is your standard web form where you can lay it out, and we're interfacing it back into the CRM data. So we're creating the account, we're getting the user to check off terms of use acceptance. We're creating the contact, which is a whole record for that person in the CRM, but at the same time we're creating a Drupal user account for them. We're assigning them to a group and giving them a membership, so all that functionality is in there. We're assigning them a role. So if you're familiar with Drupal permissions system, right, roles, access, etc. And then we're automatically, after they fill out this form to create the account, we're automatically logging them in and redirecting them to their setup page. So we're saying, okay, now that you've set up an account, you're ready to get a campaign going. We've on the pages, we've set it up in such a way so that we can collect custom fields. So they can give us more information about the campaign that they're doing, what specific, and we'll talk about the vanity URLs in a little bit. So we're able to collect additional functionality around custom fields. And this is one of the things particular to Civi CRM. In Drupal, we're used to, I have a piece of content, I want to put some extra fields on it, I want to put it in a field set or something like that. That's all available there. Likewise, on the Civi CRM side, when you've got a contact or a principal campaign page, the ability to add virtually unlimited amount of custom data is available there. So then we've taken the team personal campaign pages, and again, we've kind of added a layer. So normally you just have either you're individually donating or you've got a personal campaign page, and this is kind of an umbrella or another level of the ability to put in team campaign page. So again, in the spirit of open source, we've took somebody else's work that they've done for a particular organization and built on top of that. So we are summing up all the different contributions, showing up all the different member pages, listing totals for each of the page, and then we also added API support so you can interact with this directly from the code. The screenshots are pretty, if you're familiar with the setup of personal campaign pages, this is going to be looking very familiar because now instead of just having a couple options for the page types, you get an extra page. And you can define whether you're setting up personal or you're going to be a member of another team, or whether you're setting up a new team page, right? So there's like 3 different levels of, here's just my individual one, I'm joining another team, or I'm setting up basically a campaign of my own. Any questions so far? I'm seeing kind of nods, I'm seeing a lot of people taking pictures, that's a good thing. And I'll make the slides and everything available on the Drupal GovCon website, so when you go to the session page, you can just download all of these if you want to have the screenshots or any specific information. So the infrastructure, again, Civi CRM, we put in the custom fields, the API, the block API, and the team page API, so that was all developed on the back end, and that's open source, available for everybody to reuse with your own projects. The views integration for contribution, as I was saying, that the Civi CRM exposed tables, so that's available for reporting. So we've created some reports that show up all the different things. So individual pages, people that are members of other pages, and then we're putting it on their dashboards. And also for the back end, for the admins, we've created a number of views reports. Custom fields are in there, and we're using Drupal image style. So if you know, you can use one image and then reformat it depending on what it's being used for, whether it's a mobile responsive theme or you're trying to incorporate it in a report. So what does a campaign listing look like? You come to the website, you say I want to find a campaign. You can either browse it, and then the Drupal view shows the individual details. So they went with kind of the flashcard layout where you've got the name and a picture, and then that allows you to find the cause that you want to donate to. It makes it really easy for people to either join a particular cause or start their own. We're using, again, the image styles to reuse the same image in multiple formats and multiple sizes. And we've added also a pretty sophisticated breadcrumb navigation. So you go from the campaign to the team, to another team, to the members. So you can very easily see that. So here's a specific campaign page, as you see it here. So they've got Mayor on the Move. They've got pictures, logos. You can view the page, you can join the page, or you can look at some other of the campaign teams that might be either related or just available in the system. And then it just keeps scrolling down, again, in just kind of a flashcard view with the details, kind of a teaser look, and then you can click through to it. We've got the public full text search. So you can just, if you go to crowdfund.umn.edu, top right, there's a search box. You can type in any keyword and it'll bring up all the different individual or team pages or campaigns that are around that. So if I were to go in and type in cancer, now I get fundraising page search results page, which was driven again with the Drupal views listing and the image styles. So something like a keyword like for cancer, it shows up all the different options where somebody can get engaged. The next thing which we're very used to from the Drupal world, which is page aliases. We gave those options or the ability for people that are setting up their campaign pages and team pages to define their own URLs. So something like a Bell Museum Fund, they go in and type it. Obviously they don't get to touch the domain, but they can now have a very user-friendly URL that they can tell people, hey, go to this website, type this in. And it was a custom module. We're using the Drupal Path module to help us with that. And they're doing that, again, to improve their SEO and sharing. And it's just a feel to the end user. It's just like, okay, what do I want this to be? If it's available, that's it. As I mentioned, the CiviCRM functionality includes a little bit of sharing capability, and we've extended it with the Open Graph metadata for image, title, and description. So when somebody comes in here, you can see the team leader, you can see the little box that says help spread the world. So when you type it into Facebook, you get a really nice image, title, and everything else. So when people are sharing this out to the Facebook, it's automatically properly formatted. And again, we're using just one page where the user types it all up, and all of this happens on the back end with the proper modules. I talked about making the content a little bit more flexible for people, so it's not just an image, text, and give me money. And as you know, if you've participated with something like a Kickstarter campaign or something like that, you know that people love watching a little video and an intro. So this was an add-on requirement where they came in and said, hey, can we add some YouTube videos to this? And it sounds pretty simple, because you could say, okay, well, just give me the YouTube video URL and we'll put it in there. Of course, getting it displaying properly, making it responsive within the theme and everything else is a little bit more challenging. But again, any video URL, YouTube and otherwise, that can display within an iframe, and we can format it properly. It works straight out of the box. So end user, very easy. Type in a URL and it displays. Speaking of the theme, we wanted to and kept pushing for this. This has been a few years in development and an ongoing process. But what we said back then was, you know, it's 2017, or I think we developed a thing a couple of years ago, actually. But if you're developing something like this today, it's 2017, so all pages should be responsive. As a matter of fact, what we're seeing on a lot of our client sites right now is more than 50% of the traffic, especially when it comes to something, what I would call relatively impulsive visits, right? So, hey, I'm passionate about this, check this out, donate. More than 50%, or almost 2/3 of those visits tend to be from mobile devices. If you're expecting and waiting for people to, you know, either double tap or pinch and zoom or something like that on your mobile device, or you're expecting people to look at it from their email on their desktop client, you might be severely limiting the functionality available to you. So that's all in there. I had mentioned this briefly, the breadcrumbs. From our functional standpoint, we thought, well, you've got search, you've got all these other things, you've got the tiles and the Drupal views that are displaying all the different images and teasers, etc. So we weren't quite sure how this was going to add to it, but the university-wide website, they have certain guidelines, etc. So they were pretty specific on how they want this to set up. So there was a lot of work that went into making sure the user always knew what level they were at. So we added the breadcrumbs, and I've already mentioned this, and I'm not sure anybody in here specifically has a specific requirements like this, but this just speaks to the larger ability to integrate the data. More often than not, and as we move forward, our Drupal websites are not the only ones, or not the master record, right? So how do we interact with other systems? And one of them is to have something like an XML feed that can provide data, and this could be into an accounting system, this could be into another content like synchronization, content aggregation system. It could be a lot of different uses that you could have similar requirements for, where you can use a XML feed. It doesn't just have to be the financial data. One thing I would like to highlight here, I think that is particularly neat, is the fact that we've secured the feed. We didn't want just anybody, figure out what the path is. And of course, because there's a different department interacting, it wouldn't be that easy to change the path in the first place. It's not like we can just say, on the first of a month, we'll always change it to something random, so adjust your system. So we have a system through which we generate a secure path and protected by a shift and token validation, which passed their university-wide technical and security requirements. So unless we're expecting it and they're sending the proper token and all the exchange happens as expected, you don't get any data publicly available. But it also avoids any particular, you can automate this. You're not relying on a username and ID or something like that of somebody with roles and permissions. So this could have other applications where you're trying to get people to access specific data. You could take this down all the way to, I want to display something to people when I send them an email and provide a link, but I only want them to see specific data that I know went to this email address. Right? So when they click on that link, you could utilize the same technology.
Is this the same sort of thing as Google's Authenticator? Like so they could use that potentially to get their...
You could do that as well.
Nice.
Yeah. The other nice part here is with this particular system is they can actually query it by date. So within the path, there's specific parameters that if they pass those parameters along with that token validation, by default, they're only getting the, every 24 hours they're pinging the system and getting the feed. But let's say their system goes down for maintenance and misses the window through which it normally requests the data. We gave them the option to say, if you give us additional data, you'll have the ability to pull in additional data sets such as daily contributions for the last week or a particular date range, or you can even limit it down by other things. So it's almost like a filtering mechanism via the URL request. As I mentioned, the anonymous donations, there is a stock functionality to have anonymous people going to the honor roll. So the custom part was page owner and notification emails, where we had to anonymize it. User dashboard looks fairly simple on the front end. So when I go in and say, here's my fundraising page, here's the people that are underneath it, whether they're active, approved. That's for the back end management of it. And I always say, we can do a lot of things, but how are the results? And the results are, when they launched this, and they're third or fourth year now in their cycle of fundraising, they've raised a lot of money with this. As a matter of fact, not only the content manager that was responsible for interacting with us has provided continuously great feedback about how functional and how intense of the feedback they've gotten from their users. The level of engagement with the alumni of the university has gone through the roof because of the system. So happy donor community, they invest money into the causes. It's now the university's got donors on their donor roll effectively that were never alumni and never connected to the university directly. So they reached people that they never had in their crosshairs for donors, but those people are now donating because they're coming through somebody else who is an alumni. I think this was a great quote when we were talking to them. They said the amount of donations covered the development costs within 2 months. So when you can have that kind of an ROI and continue utilizing systems for years to come, where it's like, hey, in 2 months we paid for the system, everything else is a benefit, and as I mentioned, it's a rolling benefit. It's not just a one-time donation. It's now those people are engaged with the university. There is a communication channel back and forth. So to wrap it up, Drupal and CiviCRM integration. I mean, obviously, we're all here because of Drupal. There is a lot of good modules out there. When you've got a platform on which you can build, you can do a lot of very interesting things and engage the audience. We've launched additional client sites with similar functionalities, and we continue ongoing development because we definitely see opportunities out there for a wide array of organizations, not just educational institutions, but really any nonprofit, trade organizations, professional association. We see the opportunity where they can tap into the next level of contacts beyond the usual donor suspects. Again, these slides will be made available. I've got a whole slide here on resources that you can look through it. There's an online book, the extensions, custom modules, and everything else. If you go to our website, square.com, in the portfolio, we have a full case study on this particular project with some additional level of detail. So didn't want to go into heavily technical things, but that is all available out there. And it's 9:45, so I finish on time. And happy to take any questions. Kevin.
Sorry, I was at the restroom. I didn't hear you talk about the payment system.
Yeah, so very good question on how do we process payments. CiviCRM specifically, similar to Drupal Commerce, and you have different systems, but effectively you can choose whoever you want your payment processor to be. So if whether it's PayPal, whether it's Authorize.net, whether it's IATS, there's just an array. Stripe, there's an array of available payment processors that you choose. As a matter of fact, you could even go as far as adding in multiple different ones, and then depending on where the people are, whatever the conditions are, they could be processed through different payment systems. So that's built in and available to utilize.
Is there any privacy settings just related to this project?
Privacy settings for the users that are communicating, or what do you have in mind?
Let's say, for example, you have a list of the users who donated how much.
Yeah.
Is it visible to admin or to everybody?
Correct. So there is, again, traditional Drupal roles and permissions are available there. And then on the CiviCRM side, you can go down as deep as setting permissions. It's called ACLs, but you can set it down all the way to the field level. So you could say this particular administrator or this group of administrators, anybody in this role can see, this set of custom fields, and the other people so if you want to have financial people seeing the financial data, that's great. And then if you want to have other people only seeing maybe some aggregates or particular, how many people have donated, but not necessarily the individual specifics or the numbers. We've done a number of implementations, not necessarily with peer-to-peer fundraising, but where people are collecting personal data. I mean, you might have as sensitive as social security numbers, and you only want to have it, for HR purposes. You want to store that, but you only want HR department to access it. So you can go down to that level of detail with custom fields and specify who that's available to.
How about users option? Can the donor select to be, you mentioned anonymous?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so user can select to be anonymous. Yeah, user has the option. So obviously on the back end, when you're processing the payment, you have to know who that is, and that's a whole different discussion on securing the credit card transactions and making sure that scammers aren't trying to run a $1 or $2 transactions and check for stolen credit cards. So that's probably a separate presentation. But from a user standpoint, if the user doesn't want to be acknowledged publicly on the website, we do have an option for the user to stay anonymous, and they'll stay anonymous both on the website and to the person that's running the campaign. So that person will only be available to the payment processing on the back end. And again, depending on how the organization wants to set it up, we could keep that person anonymous and out of pretty much all the administrative views as well.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Any other questions?
For the XML feed, were you coming from Civi's accounting data, or are you just going straight from like stuff that's coming in on your PCP?
I want to say we're taking out of Civi CRM accounting data because we've got some of the funds already set up there so that they can correspond. And the fund is not the fundraising fund; it's the accounting, chart of accounts. So we're able to configure specific categories or chart of accounts and match it to their XML feed and to their grander system. So
like these 100 pages are all for the medical school.
Exactly.
For the school social
Exactly.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're effectively pre-categorizing their transactions before they even start taking it into their accounting system, because at this point there is thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions, and they don't want to be there hand keying, which department does this belong to, etc. So we have the ability to set that up. Okay, I think the next presenter is going to come in here and get set up. So thank you again very much for your time. And if you have any questions, I'm around. Come talk to me.